Lorenzo's on. Hey, let him take you.
Yeah, buddy. Sorry.
Oh, it's not a bad one.
He's not bad. You got him? Flip him. Hey everybody, David Fine here from Watch Your Lip. Hopefully you tuned into my first do's and don'ts video for fishing Chokoloskee. In the video before, we gave you 7 tips on how to catch more fish in Chokoloskee. This video is going to be a little different, guys. This is going to be 7 things that you avoid doing if you want to catch fish in Chokoloskee. Chokoloskee is a huge place, a lot of land to cover, a lot of water to cover, and it can be daunting, especially if you don't know the area. So getting a little local knowledge helps. If you can find some locals or people that have fished there before, have somebody show you a few things, that would be great. A lot of the YouTube videos, you know, that are out there, and they're, you know, it's kind of not the same as being there with somebody who knows what they're doing. That's a fantastic thing. But in this video, guys, we're going to give you 7 tips, things not to do when fishing Chokoloskee if you want to catch fish, okay? Don't do these things. Thing number 1, guys, thing number 1, and this has been our experience, you know, there's been a great advertising push on using fluorocarbon leader, this very expensive leader material, and I use fluorocarbon all the time when fishing reefs, you know, snapper, snook fishing, a lot of times we use fluorocarbon. But here, guys, in Chokoloskee, the fish, the water's dirty. The water's not very clear water. You don't need fluorocarbon. Save your money, use monofilament, and, you know, save a lot of money, and it's going to be cheaper, it's going to be easier, and I'm telling you, you don't need the expensive fluorocarbon leader when fishing Chokoloskee. You know, you don't want to use heavy line. In fact, that's point number 2. You don't think, point number 2, things not to do, you know, don't go with really heavy tackle. You don't want heavy line. You want light line. The last time I was actually fishing 10-pound test braid, and that might be a little light. You can go up to 20-pound test braid, but I wouldn't go any heavier than that. And we're using a 20-pound test leader and really, really small hooks. Go with as small of a hook as you can get away with for whatever bait that you're using. And so lighter is better, smaller tends to work better, and you tend to have less problems with hang-ups and getting your line out of the, you know, plus it's easier to, if you get hung up and you can't, you know, it's easier to break off and retie real quick if you've got lighter line. So trust me, don't go with super heavy tackle in Chokoloskee. Think really light line. You know, most of the fish that you're going to be targeting, they're not monsters. You know, you're going to have a lot of sea trout. You're going to have a lot of redfish, and, you know, in this area, sheep's head, mangrove snapper. You don't need 40-pound tests to catch a 6-pound redfish. You don't, okay? There are larger fish, now don't get me wrong, but for the most part, I can tell you right now, light line is good, 10, 20-pound test. Tip number 3, things not to do when you're in Chokoloskee. If you start fishing a location, give yourself, set a timer. If you fish for more than 15 minutes and you don't get a strike, and you're using live bait and you're pitching into mangroves or whatever, you don't get a bite in 15 minutes, pick up and move. I don't care how good the spot looks in your opinion, you know, or even if it's things that I've recommended on this video. If you're fishing for more than 15 minutes, you don't get a bite, pick up and move. Try something different, okay? There's something off with that spot. There's a lot of fish in Chokoloskee, and if they're not biting, move, go find the fish, okay? Tip number 4, guys, if you catch a sea trout, cast in the exact same location pretty quickly. Try not to lose that spot. You know, if you have a GPS system, hit a marker on it and make sure you know where it is, because the sea trout hang out in schools and they like a certain area. So if you catch one trout, and especially if it's a decent sized trout, they hang out in schools with like-sized fish, and you're going to want to hit that area hard immediately to try and catch the other fish that might be in the same area with that sea trout. So if you start catching fish, you know, Don't drift off of that spot. Make sure you fish that spot over and over again until you know there's no more fish here. Tip number 5, a lot of people like to use chunk bait, cut bait for snapper and that kind of thing. I can tell you right now, if you're using cut bait, you're putting a lot of scent in the water, you're gonna start catching catfish. So if you're using the large chunk bait you're going for a big bull redfish out on the oyster beds or something like that, we haven't gotten into that a whole lot yet, so I can't really speak into that. But when you're fishing the mangroves and you're trying to get smaller fish, don't use chunk bait, because what that does is that puts a whole lot of scent in the water, and the catfish are gonna come. And once the catfish find you, you're just gonna be wasting your time, wasting your bait, and plus you don't wanna get stuck by those little buggers. And they are super annoying and messy and smelly and all that. So I would say stay away from chunk bait when fishing the mangroves. All right, guys, point number 6, things not to do when fishing Chokoloskee. Okay, don't go fishing on a boat in Chokoloskee unless you know the tides. You gotta know the tides, and you gotta have a navigation system on your boat and a chart, a depth chart. That helps tremendously. I mean, you can try it. You can probably get away with it, especially if you have, been fishing the backwaters for a long period of time and you have good intuition, then that's a whole nother story. But if you're just starting out, trust me, don't go without a navigation system. Number 1, it's a safety thing, and you want to stay safe. You want to make sure you can find your way home. But also, these navigation systems have these great depth charts, and the depth charts help you find where the drop-offs are and where current is going. You can see all that stuff on your navigation system, and so have that system there. You can kind of come up with a plan based on what the tides are. So you got to know your tides. Make sure you understand the tides. The tides, and this is another thing, the tides at the boat ramp or the marina where you launch from are considerably different than what the tides are going to be out on the outer ends of the islands before you go out into the bay. So make sure you understand what the high and low tide situation is, both at the marinas where you're launching and at the outer islands of Chokoloskee and the 10,000 islands before you get into the bay. That'll help you navigate, and it'll help you find fish. And guys, finally, point number 7, things not to do in Chokoloskee. I'm a live bait fisherman, and so for me to go to a place like this without live bait it just feels wrong. But I can tell you, after spending 3 years in a row fishing the Chokoloskee area, you don't need to go spend all your money on live bait. Buying dozens and dozens and dozens of shrimp, great. Shrimp work. They work great. But I can tell you right now, using some artificial lures, especially small artificial lures, small little jigs and stuff like that, they actually have produced for us more fish, more quality fish, than using the shrimp, because the shrimp, you get your little undersized mangrove snapper chewing them up, you get your catfish, you get your little annoying fish that they smell. They hunt by smell instead of sight. Your predators like sea trout, redfish, snook, yeah, they smell, don't get me wrong, they will hunt by scent, but their predominant method of hunting is not their smell. They use their lateral line, and they detect motion, and they see. They're using their eyesight to fish and to hunt. So an artificial lure presented the right way is actually more effective than live bait a lot of times, because you're avoiding all of the bycatch and annoying fish that just waste your time and your money and your expensive shrimp. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. These are tips. Again, they're not universal. I'm a live bait guy. I'm always gonna get live bait because it's who I am. But I can tell you, I was humbled in this last trip because I spent the first half of the trip fishing live bait, and I was having a really hard time just catching catfish. I switched to artificial, switched to these little tiny jigs, started catching a lot of fish. So guys, hope you liked the video. Give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We've got a lot of action. We're not Southwest Florida fishermen, but we're becoming Southwest Florida fishermen. We're more on the East Coast. and we've got that pretty much figured out and dialed in. So we're going to show you how to fish the Southeast Florida coastal waters and the Southwest Florida coastal waters, as well as we get to know beautiful areas of South Florida like Chokoloskee and the 10,000 islands in Southwest Florida. So guys, take care, stay safe, God bless. Thanks for watching, and watch your lid. Bye now.